Hello, Internet. Welcome to that Silverline show on Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim TK, and I'm joined by Aaron Humphreys.
Mm-hmm. Just me.
Yep. Mackenzie is currently trapped somewhere in the Atlantic, and Jose is dealing with some family stuff, so we will see them when we see them next. But yeah, you guys got us.
Where's Quentin been? Or does Quentin do Tuesday anymore?
I think Quentin's on sabbatical. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's something. I thought he was on vacation somewhere. Maybe I saw that.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, he's been out for a little bit, so I think the last time he was in was before Daytona, so it's been a while.
Oh, it has been. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that's back in September.
Yep. Hey, yeah, we are. My hair is doing weird stuff. I'm gonna fix that real quick.
Yeah.
That's weird. Anyway, we are going to be talking about a question that comes up more often than you'd think, given the current state of technology. Do comic artists need to relocate for work? A lot of people seem to be Googling the question of where comic artists work, or sometimes it comes up in panels. People ask, if I want to work as an artist, do I need to move to New York or Portland or LA to be next to one of the publishers? So we'll be talking about that.
You know, the funny thing is, I would say no and yes. It depends on what you want to do. We're talking comic books specifically?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then no.
No. Yeah, exactly.
If you're doing visual effects, creature fabrication for like movies, then yes, you have to go to the studio where they make that. But
right, yeah.
Comics not as much, no.
Yeah, if you want to specifically work with like the MCU graphics department, then yes. But
yeah.
Yeah. But we'll probably talk about maybe where this question comes from, the history of the comic artist bullpen.
That's primarily a Marvel thing. Did DC have a bullpen too? A bullpen?
They did, just not to the same extent.
Well, Stan Lee made the bullpen at Marvel kind of famous because he would always write stuff from there.
Yeah, there's it was one of those things where like the success in marketing where everyone is doing it, but it became associated with Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even like pretty much any form of traditional print was doing some form of bullpen back in the day. It's just that everyone recognized the term with the New York Times and Marvel because those are the two publishing houses that really kind of marketed the bullpen.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, we're talking about that. The changes in technology that make it so you don't need to really relocate. But there may be some personal choices as to like maybe wanting to move to closer to publishing houses for other reasons, but it's not a necessity, I would say.
No, I mean, even back before they had email, there were people who worked abroad and mailed stuff in.
Yeah,
it was not the norm, but it was a rarity.
Yeah, it's one of those things where after you cut your teeth a little bit, if you wanted to move back wherever, they'd be like, okay, great, we'll just email you. We'll mail you your next set of packages, and then you send us back the book when it's done.
Yeah.
Typically, I found that those artists typically worked on like the bigger collected books because they didn't need to meet the monthly schedule as much. So it'd be like, yeah.
But like a lot of the foreign artists that would do anything for America, whatever, would ship overseas and stuff of that nature.
Yeah.
Technology has also made it that you could get the originals easier. You don't even have to do the originals. Most originals are protected. So, I mean, even though
a lot of originals are Adobe files.
Oh yeah, like all my pencil pages would actually do actual pencil pages are all not touched by inkers. They're inked digitally. So yeah,
definitely. No, Aaron, as a comic artist,
what I am,
as some would say, when you were getting into it, I mean, we both have the benefit of being in the Portland area, which is close to Image, Oni, Dark Horse.
It is now. It wasn't then.
It wasn't then, yeah. But when you're breaking in, was relocation something you're considering, or did you always think like I'm just gonna work from?
I did consider it. There are certain cities I didn't think I had any interest in living if I didn't have. LA is one city that never interested me in visiting or going to. I know there's a lot of art and stuff, not even like comics in LA, but I don't know, nothing about that city interested me at all. Thought about New York here. I did go to the Joe Keeper School for a few months.
Yeah.
Um, but I was never one to really want to work for Marvel DC. I always wanted to work for Dark Horse. Because I mean, when I was growing up, they were big out here because they were the local company.
Yeah.
And so all the stores catered to Dark Horse merchandise. And so that was a company everyone wanted to work for. And so I tried a few times at Dark Horse, no luck. That's the only company I ever sent in work and haven't gotten any luck yet.
Yeah.
I'll try it again. I don't know. There was something about it's like home turf or whatever, but I think that's the only company I really looked at, and I didn't have to relocate because I lived right next to him.
Yeah. I was actually just out in Bend in spring. I don't know why I didn't stop by. Stop by the front doors, wave.
Yeah. Well, I think that they're probably not, but if I remember right, I think because Dark Horse started from the first Things from Another World, which I think was called. Wasn't called Pegasus. It was called something else, I think. Then I don't think it was called Things from Another World, because it was a comic book store, and then they started making comic books from there, and then formed the Dark Horse. I thought the offices were across the street from the original store, but I'm sure that's not the case anymore.
I don't
think originally
so,
they were.
Yeah.
So, and we went to Dark Horse in high school, and so early 90s, late 80s. I don't remember them having an art studio. I think they were mostly just offices. I think they had some stuff where they would get in art and do stuff, maybe inkers or whatever, but nothing like a bullpen. That was never a Dark Horse. Not that I remember.
Yeah, I believe. When their version of in-house artists was essentially this would like annex office spaces, just like co-working spaces out in Portland or in Bend. And but they were kind of already in the forefront of everyone being remote by the 90s. Yeah.
Most people. Well, they were very much into. I always liked Dark Horse because they were very much into more sci-fi, like even fantasy. I mean, even like they tried a superhero series. They tried it, and they had like a series called X, and it was just called X and stuff. And I tried to read them. I don't know. They weren't.
Even their superheroes are tied into more fantasy or sci-fi elements.
Yeah. I mean, there was one series called The Mark, which I liked, and Dark Horse was also responsible for bringing over a lot of anime. They brought over Dirty Pair, and which I think was either they had stuff drawn by Adam Warren or he did the cover some. So they brought over Dirty Pair. They brought over a few other manga, like
they brought over Berserk.
Lady Sarah. I'm not sure they brought over Berserk, but it was one of those things. So I mean, people ask me like, "Aaron, why'd you like you're in the manga?" I'm like, I'm in the manga in the 80s and 90s. I haven't been in the new manga and anime. I don't know anything much about them. But back in the 80s and 90s, I did because Dark Horse was one of the first companies to start importing that stuff. So besides the Dark Horse comics, they had a relatively okay manga section. But I didn't realize it was like foreign comics. I just thought they were. After a while, I did. Yeah. But they had like Concrete, and I didn't read Concrete until much later in life, and really liked that one when I read it. But that was Paul Chadwick, I think, did Concrete, if I'm not mistaken. But they always had some sci-fi stuff. I mean, Dark Horse didn't really kind of gum on the map till they got the Aliens Predator. And I remember when the first Alien versus Predator comic came out, it was a big deal in all the comic stores. Yeah. I don't know if it was a big deal anywhere else in the country, but here it was like a big deal. We all counted down, and all my comic friends bought it. We all, so.
Yeah, it was a big thing. And I believe that also led into their weird business deal with Archie in like 2010, 2011, which now we got Archie versus Predator, and it's great. But yeah, the Berserk.
Was it Dark Horse that first published it?
Berserk is Dark Horse, which now I'm wondering. Man, I keep on forgetting his name, the character, but I kind of want him versus Archie.
Yeah.
It is just Guts. Yeah, Guts versus Archie would be great.
I remember there was a big phase in the late 90s where the Aliens and Predators would cross over. They had Superman versus Aliens, Batman versus Predator, which actually was kind of good. Tarzan versus Predator, which seemed like the most logical one.
Yeah.
If you think about it, because he hunts in the jungle, and it's just I'm like, well, that actually makes sense. The two sort of savages. I never read it. I don't think I did. Or maybe I did. But there are Predator comics all over, and they would do crossovers and stuff. But Dark Horse always had that sort of thing. The other thing that was really a huge push is when they did I think it was the Legends imprint, and that was Frank Miller with Sin City, and then Hellboy, and then it was John Byrne's Next Men. Not X-Men, Next Men. Next Men became my superhero comic that I read a lot, even though it wasn't really a superhero.
Right,
I read the X-Men, then I read Next Men. The only real superhero comic I read was the New Warriors, the original. And I still have all the New Warriors. I think I still have them all. And I still have all my X-Men, but I couldn't get in the other ones. So I got into Next Men, and I really liked that series. And then he actually finished it like 10 or 15 years later. Like IDW, like published the last year, because he just ended on a cliffhanger.
Nice.
And then he finally came back and finished the whole series. And I need to read it again because I remember reading the ending, going like, I don't know about that, but I want to read it again. So I have them all. But yeah, I remember that when Hellboy came out. I didn't think much of Hellboy when it came out. It was okay. I liked Sin City. My friend Tom really liked Hellboy and got into it. And after reading it later in life, I had more appreciation for it.
Yeah.
But those are the three big. Well, then there was also Monkey Man and O'Brien, which is Arthur Adams, but that lasted like 3 or 4 issues. That was in the Legend, and then that died. The only ones that really survived were those first 3, but there were a few other ones that tried.
Right.
And Dark Horses, that's when they were like, Image was an imprint, so everyone had to have their own artist imprint, and that was Dark Horses, was Legend.
Yeah. Kind of got off there, but it's all good still. Yeah. So can't talk.
Well, most of those artists worked remote. None of them worked in house.
Exactly, and we're just kind of talking about like, a lot of that great work came in remotely, and the one time you considered, it wouldn't even be like if you did work domestically at a publisher or our house, it'd be still close by, so you wouldn't really need to relocate. But back in the day, if you were a main title comic artist, you probably would need to relocate to New York or LA, or to one of their annexes.
I think that changed in probably the mid-90s.
Mid-90s, around the 95 reboot,
Yeah, I think that started changing a little bit more.
Yeah, and the reason why that was such a thing is because we had that monthly release schedule for comics. So even if they had like a artist they preferred working who wasn't local, there wasn't always a guarantee they could finish all the pages each month.
Yeah.
So by keeping artists in-house, so some of these guys did work on the same title throughout, but sometimes you just had people who would sit at their desk and like once a week or whatever, an editor who was behind would run by, throw pages at them, like, here, finish these.
Yeah, and get them done.
Yeah.
I think that was the one benefit. I mean, they could do that now with technology. But back then it was the main thing about having people right next to you. There is a different. It's not really a studio. There's a place used to be called Periscope Studios. Now it's called Helioscope. Have you heard of these guys?
In passing, but I don't know if I've ever really got.
If you go to like the Real City Comic Con and stuff, you see them. They usually have a big eye called Helioscope. And they are different artists that work for different companies, but they have kind of a bullpen in Portland. I still think they do.
Yes. Yeah.
And they work, but all the artists there work on various other titles or other things. They just collected in one, so they can kind of give each other work. So I think it was just the idea, like artists tend to work alone, so let's all get together.
Like create a co-working space,
Exactly. And that's what it seemed like. It was a big co-working space.
Yeah.
So and there's been people that gone in and out of there. That's the only thing I can think of around Portland that I've heard that even comes close to the bullpen. And it's not really a bullpen because they're not working towards the same company or goal. Each one is working towards different goals. Yeah. They just work together in the same space.
I think even our big publisher now is Image, and I don't think they've ever had in-house anyone.
No, I don't think so.
It's just been office staff and editors.
If I'm not mistaken, I think each individual company had them. So I think when you had like Awesome Studios, Wildstorm,
Mad Cow did have.
They had their own sort of in-studio bullpens, but not a central Image one.
Yeah.
Because I remember hearing stories of like, especially when Rob Liefeld would do one of his Extreme Awesome Studios, that there'd be people working, and he would I remember one of his, I think he said he brought people out to live in a house or studio, but he brought people out to work in the studio and stuff back in the day when they could. And that may be the last vestige. So each individual studio or branch of Image had one, but yeah, not the central office, I don't think.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I have no idea if any of the, I know Image Central is out here, but I have no idea if any of the other studio, I don't even know if they even have the other studio. I think they all work remotely now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they think it's just mainly to keep an office there, and if you, I don't know if they have like, I know some places will keep essentially like a hangout space, or if you're like are in the area and want to like go in somewhere to work, they have that open. But that all kind of changed, like we kind of said, around the time about the 95 reboot, which also was, getting ready for the advent of the internet. Email became a thing. Also, mail deliveries got quicker because we had digital tracking and stuff, so it was much quicker to send packages.
I think FedEx also was faster, or like was a more private. So they would, and I know a lot of artists would use FedEx a lot because it was quicker, and I think they actually cared for the packages more, treated the packages better.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and they were kind of at the forefront of creating that digital tracking software. So you always got stuff a couple days earlier, which sped up. But when you're sending, raw pages to get inked, to then get like color, to get flatted, all this other stuff, shaving off a couple days on each trip, it adds up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now it's all pretty much instant because you just send people a bunch of like XMF files.
Well, I don't even think, I think most artists ink their own work because since you literally can just draw in black, I think most people just pretty much draw straight into it as a colorist. So I notice a lot of times you look in a lot of modern comics, you see artist, writer,
right,
artist,
it's
and then
like
you see
artist,
colorist.
Yeah,
you see artist then colorist, but you don't see penciler, inker, colorist. You don't see that much anymore.
No.
And I think it's just the digital stuff has made. You could do a rough sketch and then just straight, and when you do the finals, just go straight in the ink. You don't need to. So I think the idea of inking is they just changed it. I notice it a lot. Like it's like, and a lot of the writer is the artist. There's a lot of writer artist combinations,
especially in the indies.
In the indies and stuff, because I mean it's like you don't have money to pay for. You just don't. I mean, I had to learn how to do everything myself. So yeah, but inking. I don't know if it's funny. You can kind of see in some comics how it's a lost one, but inking was another way to break in the comics. But I don't know if you even had to travel to them. I think you could. I think most pencilers sent the pages to the inker and the inker would send them in, but I don't know.
Sometimes, yeah. But what kind of became a thing, probably like, well, we kind of became the trend later on, is especially I think may have led to the downfall of the inker was a lot of editors realized that like our editors who already had some level of art chops realized that like, oh, I can just ink this over real quick and we can like cut a week off this. And so that all started happening inside the office
and stuff. And I know a lot of ink digital. Some ink, I know McFarlane still inks traditionally a lot. You see videos of him inking traditionally on pages and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it still happens, and I think he does almost all the inking. I don't know if other people do it. I know he's always doing that stuff. But yeah, and then the colorists, they're starting to knock down like that now colorists like people, because I do my own coloring too. So
yeah, you're starting to see a lot more like. Man, like they'll pass it back to the writer to do letters too. So we're starting to see just a lot of like 2 name titles, even them in like the big 2, big 3 prints, or maybe 3 name titles if the editor is also doing lettering or whatever. But I think they're starting to add in like the different levels of editor to make sure that they have like an appropriate amount of names on the cover so it doesn't look weird.
Yeah,
so has like associate editor, like senior editor.
It's funny because I've never worked with Roland's the closest I've worked to, and he's kind of a hands-off editor. I never really worked with an editor. I don't know if that's good or bad. I tend to think it's sometimes kind of good, but that's just me.
Well, it's good for your skill set. Different levels of editors are required for different skill sets or work styles. So like me working as an editor, my main job was to work as the translator because we had like a writers only writer like I am, but working with an artist who's only an artist. So
Yeah.
So I give notes back to the writer, for like story changes and beat changes, all that, and then I would help them make sure all the panel descriptions, all the language on there is appropriate for the artist. And then if the I'm sorry about any background noise happening right now. And my camera just died. That's fun. Occasionally, I don't know what's up with this webcam. I need to replace it, but the last couple streams I've been turning into the max headroom every now and then, just stuttering.
I'm used to it. You freezing, time to time.
But and if the artist had any questions or whatever, I'd always be the one that'd go through for clarification first, because by that point the writer's already working on issue 2.
Yeah. So he's got it up there. I always ask my writer, you want anything changed or whatever, and he never wants anything changed. I think he's still enamored with the fact that somebody's drawing his stuff. Right. And sometimes I've noticed that, especially with independents, like writers won't say any changes because they're afraid if they get too picky or do it, the artist will be like, screw this, and leave.
For me, anything minor, I chalk up to artistic style, because I mean that's what it is, right? It's the writer's vision through the artist's lens into the reader's imagination. So you're getting like 3 veils on it. So
it is different. I mean, I will say that as a writer, I sometimes write a script where my scripts are it's mostly for the dialogue, and like I write very little panel description, not like you would write. But most of my comic is broken down into thumbnails. And I will write to get the general beat, but I'll do like panel 1, he looks off in the distance. Panel 2, he's walking. Like I won't describe the background or anything because I already know what I'm going to draw. It's just a guide. And then I'll do the thumbnails, but it's in the thumbnails that I will change things and alter things. I'm thumbnailing one of my own comics now. That's just a standalone 1-issue story, and there's a lot of things you'll change or whatever. But the story really comes together in the thumbnails. And that's something that a lot of writers can't do. They give it to the artist and they go back and forth. But even when I write the script, I'll know it's just mostly I just write it for a way to remember what I was thinking at the time. They're mostly notes, then there's something to follow. And stuff. And there's even been some stuff in the scripts that I've gotten that I've changed just because they're not necessary for the story. Because I've noticed there's one action where this guy like pushes somebody, and then the next scene like that doesn't matter, and so I'm like, well, you don't need to push that, you don't need to push that person, like that doesn't, so there's certain things like I will just, for clarification, if the action is carried off in the story, it's fine, but sometimes I will just alter and do very minor things just to get clarification. Or if I can't fit the amount of stuff, because you writers sometimes will 10 panels, and every panel's got to have a city, car, a plane, boat, crowd, whatever, and everything. And it's like, you guys all think we're George Perez. We're not George Perez. So you guys got to, there's certain things that are extraneous. I'm tossing them. I'm doing most of this for free. So no, I ain't drawing that.
Yeah, no. If I'm giving like a big set piece, I'm giving like at least a 1-page splash. Normally like a 2-page. I'm like, I'm gonna give you all the space to do this, and this is like you're covering 2 pages of one stone here. Right. But if you're writing action comics, also just as a rule of thumb, try to keep it like 5 panels max, because it keeps the flow quick, and also it gives your artist room to work with and your reader time to enjoy stuff. If I'm doing like talking heads, I might bump up the panel count, because it's we got to have our Sherlock Holmes like breaking down the puzzle thing.
But even then, it gets hard, because if you bump up the panel count and you have a lot of words, a lot of that stuff's going to be covered with words.
Yeah.
The one thing about some of the writers is there's a lot of stuff that I've read, not writers I've worked with per se, a lot of comics I've read where like they have a ton of writing, and it's like it just covers up the whole page. It gets in the way of the art, and a lot of the writing's redundant. Like you don't need that writing. It's shown in the art. You don't need. I literally read a Star Wars comic that literally had Princess Leia and Han Solo running down a hallway, and at the top in a caption it said Princess Leia and Han Solo run down a hallway.
Was that an 80s comic?
It was like an 80s or thing. It was a sequel to the Dark Empire series.
Oh yeah. Which Dark Empire is great, and then they're like,
the sequel was
we're going to can those.
Yeah. But I remember reading that. It was just unbelievable. I'm like, they run down the hallway. They show him running down the hallway. Han Solo punches Stormtrooper. They show him punching. I'm like, you don't need to write it if you're showing it.
Yeah, I love Claremont keeping X-Men alive to make it as poppin' as it was, but dear God,
there's a ton of stuff you could have cut.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, we talked this a little bit before, but we didn't give her time to get into it. But you said you had read Wolf Hunter.
Yeah. And I read the first issue.
Yeah, but I think, not to toot my own horn, but as far as pumping up the battle count, I kind of like what we did on some of those, where we created a lot of blank space. We're just going to use French colors, and we're going to weave bubbles through there.
Yeah, you did, and you gave, like, when you did the page with the train, you gave room for the artist to draw the train. No. You didn't, like, some panels, like, hey, we need to do an entire train station, 8 panels in the comic. Dude, you're killing me. It's like
take the page, make it your own.
Yeah, make it your own. It's like I am editing, and I found other places where I can combine panels. I mean, I found a few pages, like 7 panels, like you combine this one and this one, and it reads the same. You don't need to do any of that.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, I won't do that a lot because I try to keep to the writer's vision as much as possible. But the
only time we give a note back is if it's like, well, no, we can't do that because this is a plot element later on, or no, this isn't actually a thing that is real. The biggest note I gave back that required like a full story change was during the Christmas short. They had done the coloring as if it was daytime. I'm like, well, no, it's a midnight mass. It's close to midnight.
Because it's Christmas, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is Christmas, so the midnight mass. Yeah. Now you got to make sure those general stuff. I think my favorite, and this is what I always thought was the downfall. There's something, and I think it's on IGN, which always entertains me. With it, every time there's a movie out, they'll have an article that says the ending of this movie explained. And every time I read that, I'm like, if you have to explain the ending, the writer didn't do his job. Period. And I don't know. And they literally, I've read a few of them just to find out if they're really true. And they really do explain the ending. And I'm just like, do you guys all think we're just meat with eyes and no brain? I mean, we watched the movie.
I do think there is some peer viewers who are just in there for the eye candy and maybe need to have sense. But because 70% of Americans read it at a 6th grade level, and God help us.
Yes, that's true.
But I do think you can perhaps spoon feed a bit too much. What we need is like a general, like, we need more literature education.
Well, it would be like if somebody wrote an article that said Wolf Hunter explained, they'd be like, well, then I failed as a writer.
Exactly.
I mean, nobody wants that.
Yeah. No.
So
it's like,
I liked your Wolf Hunter. And is issue 2 is not only issue 1's out, right?
Only issue 1's out right now. Yeah, we're still working on an artist for issue 2. Yeah.
Okay. Is it 4 issues or 3?
This one's 3, actually. Yeah.
3. Okay. I couldn't remember. I think I remember because some of them are the 2, and I think we're still waiting on that. There's a few series we're still waiting on the final issue for.
Yeah.
And Cat and Mouse, and then Fire Rush.
Yeah.
I think we're still in this few others. This is why my comic, I'm doing one about my little barbarian character, but each comic is its own story, so you can read them in any order. I was trying to get away from the idea of, well, I have to get issue 1 because I always thought it was such a deterrent. Like, you go in the store and it's like, hey, this is a cool comic. Oh, it's issue 3. Do you have issue 1 or 2? No. Oh, I don't want to read it. And so there was a comic called Red Room. Not my cup of tea. I've looked at it. It's just not my thing. I mean, it's well done for what it is. But he did the idea of like each issue is its own story. And there was another comic called Harlan Buck, Free Sword, which was actually an independent comic online, and he did the same thing, loosely connected each story. And I thought, well, this is kind of, and I actually enjoyed them more because then I didn't feel like I was missing out if I only bought a few. I mean, I was getting whatever story. So I'm going to attempt that with this one. Kind of like my idea is to mimic the way they used to do pulp stories, like Conan stories. It was like each story was, I mean, you could read any Conan story out of order, and as long as you know who's the barbarian, you get everything. That's my idea. It's like, well, you don't need to read the other things.
I always try to treat, like, I like big interconnected stories, but I like having a room at the front. So if it is someone's first pickup, they can, like, it's like, if you were to get into Star Wars episode 5, you got the blurb at the front.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily go that heavy-handed, but I do like comics where either just have like the paragraph at the front, or like the first 2 panels have a moment where the character can like quickly recap what's happening. So I try to give Willard moments where you can be very British and curse the recap of what just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that I think recaps work. I think this is also why graphic novels work better, especially into the story.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that is a deterrent to some comic readers, is they don't know where to start, which strangely they don't know where to begin, which is strangely becoming a deterrent with the Marvel movies. I've heard people try to introduce people to Marvel movies like, I don't want to watch 20 movies. I understand this,
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's weird. It's a cool concept, but it has a limit. I think when you get too interconnected to go too long, then the people who started out are in on it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyone who's coming in, unless they're really invested, are not going to take the time.
Yeah, I just recently had a friend get into Bleach, and
it's a huge series. That's up there with
I did the favor of going here,
going forever.
It's like you don't need these filler episodes. They can skip all these seasons. But still, one of those things, you're like, I still have given like a 15 season long list. I'm like, that's one of those things where I'm like, no, screw you. You're going to sit down. You're going to watch it. You're going to like it. But yeah.
Well, it's funny. I had one friend. She was just getting into comics, and she's like, I'm really into Batman. And she's like, well, I want to start at Batman #1. And I had to sit down and like, okay, let's have a talk.
First of all, which #1?
Which #1? And trust me, if you're into the current Batman, you're not going to enjoy the original Batman #1. Very different writing style and everything.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, Batman's one of those like Superman and a lot of studios, just pick whatever looks cool and read it. As long as you know what they generally do, you're good.
Yeah. Whenever someone wants to get into comics, I never recommend they pick up a floppy anymore. I'm like, just find a trade that has a fun cover, read the synopsis. If it sounds like a cool story, get that.
Get that.
Like you already know everyone's backstory. Like everyone's been referenced in hip hop or movies or whatever. Like you know Spider-Man, no man. If freaking Asriel comes up, I can answer questions. But
right, yeah, Batman. Well, Spider-Man, I think they actually didn't do the origin of the last Spider-Man.
Oh yeah,
and they did that with Batman. I mean, Batman versus Superman, they just covered it in the beginning because everybody knows how he became Batman.
I mean, even like the R-Bats. There's like the detective who doesn't sleep. Punches people.
Yeah. You just don't.
You got it.
You don't really need to. Most superheroes fight crime. I guess they have a power, but I don't know. There's one thing, people always been so fascinated with the origins of characters. Not as much anymore, but I remember back in the day. Well, I can't really enjoy the superhero unless I know his origin, where he came from. And I was always like, well, why? I mean, he does what he does. I never really got that, but I know some people are really into I need to find out the origin.
I think it's the thing like being able to like get a level of ownership over a character, which is one of the reasons why I think Moon Knight blew up was because for a lot of like Jewish comic enjoyers, like, no, this is our Jewish superhero, and he messes people up. Yeah. And
Moon Knight was, it's funny because I remember reading the old Moon Knight comics, the one before now. I think it was Stephen Platt did them for a while. And I had a friend ask me when the Moon Knight TV series, what's Moon Knight about? I'm like, it's the Marvel version of Batman. That's the best I guess. It's not. I mean, he's got multiple personalities and all this. But as visually, it's the closest you're going to mean. He's got a cape. He jumps on rooftops. Yeah. He dresses in white and hides in shadows, which makes no sense. It's kind of like, magic. It's like, you're not really. It's like, who's that guy dressed in white in the shadows? We can't see him. He's blending in. Now, if he hid in streetlights,
there you go.
Maybe that might work.
Yeah.
But he hides in complete lit areas, and you can't see him. He just blends in. So I don't know, but I mean, I was like, why much is this guy like Batman? Like, well, he throws little moon-shaped batarangs. I'm like, okay, he really is Batman, the Marvel version of Batman.
What I explained was like, imagine a guy who, is successfully living with a mental illness and decides to be a detective without any of the detecting. He just goes straight to the fisticuffs.
Yeah, he is. I remember I watched some of the Moon Knight. I can't remember if I watched the whole thing. I think I watched bits and pieces of it, and I got the general gist of it.
Like, I liked it mostly because it's just the Oscar Isaac power hour.
Yeah, it's him doing the thing and
Yeah.
and doing that. My friend loaned me one of the newer Moon Knight comics he'd read. It was okay. Moon Knight was. I liked the character. I liked the fact that he had mental. My favorite character with a mental illness and multiple personality was Legion.
Legion's great.
And I tried watching that TV series Legion because everyone was recommended.
It's so different.
No,
I was able to enjoy it because I was so disconnected from the last time I read anything with Legion. I was like, okay, it's its own thing. It's not related to anything. It's just weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can. There was a part of me. It's like, yeah, but the one thing I always liked about Legion, one, he was Xavier's son. Mm-hmm. I think he was his son with Rory McTarget. Which I was always like, was that before he was in the wheelchair? Or, because Xavier, even in a wheelchair, he's getting some, right? Yeah. And I mean, he got the Space Queen, the Landra. So I mean, I don't know what it is about. I guess he's just a sexy bald-headed guy.
Yeah.
But he did have that. I remember, and I think they kept him on the island and he'd get out. But he was almost godlike because every time he'd switch personalities, he would mess them. He was such a cool character because it was like they didn't know what to do with them, but you couldn't let him out.
No.
And so they kind of hinted at that a little bit in the TV show. I watched like the first 3 episodes, but I'm just like, I think also the fact that they didn't do the hair. I don't know why. It was really important that they did the hair for me. I don't know.
Yeah. We're doing well, Tommy. Thanks for checking in. How are you doing?
Yeah.
I think here's a weird take that I think, even though it's not like it's not an X-Men TV show.
No,
but
it's not.
Legion is a better New Mutant story than the movie.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I'm surprised they have. Well, no, wait. I take that back. They did try to do a Generation X TV show in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
Do you remember this? It was.
I think it just unlocked core memory.
I think it lasted like 1 or 2 episodes. It was not good because they didn't have the budget or the effects to do what they wanted to do, but they did do one. I do remember this.
We had Jeremy Ratchford as Banshee?
Yeah. And I remember watching it was like, ooh, bad. They tried to make a 90210 type thing. With
no, 4.5 out of 10. That's... Wow,
the costumes were bad. Yeah, that was back when the Flash TV, the original Flash TV was actually liked.
In the fashion of abandoned content, I guess the rights to this have officially died. You can now watch it all for free on YouTube.
If you want to. I'm not sure if you really want to. I remember seeing it, and that was because I remember when they made the Flash TV series, the original one, not the new one, which the original one as a kid was still, I actually watched it years later, and it was still pretty good. Yeah. I think there was just the one thing I liked about the original Flash, they did a lot of comedy with his powers. Like I remember he inhaled like pepper or something and he sneezed, but he sneezed so fast he like backed into a wall and like cut through a wall, like it like caused damage. It's like, okay, that was kind of cool. But I remember the suit for that show was so expensive that's one of the things that killed the show. They had multiple suits because it would keep like tearing or deteriorating, and then they had that whole Art Deco look to it. The original Flash, I tried to watch the new Flash series, and I'm sorry, it's CW. So
it is very CW.
I tried with the DC shows, but they just couldn't take the CW. I watched 2 seasons of the Arrow. 1 was enough. 2 was becoming punishment. I tried to watch some of the Tomorrow, the one with the super team. It was okay. I tried to watch some of the Flash, and then it was like I don't need to hear problems of all the pretty people on CW. So
yeah, like see, like the Merlin story for Arrow was good, and then I don't know why we kept the flashback storytelling because it's a CW thing.
Yeah.
It was
this whole time in the island or whatever. I think I tried to watch Supergirl. I don't know. There's been so many series. I think they ended the whole CW DC.
They did. Yeah. It was Arrow was the only. Well, Flash did take off, but it didn't last as long. Supergirl was cool. I did like Supergirl because that made sense leaning into the CW.
It actually was the only one that made sense because the way she was and stuff made sense for a Supergirl. I mean, it's like This seemed like a CW show.
Yeah.
Did they ever call Arrow Green Arrow in the series?
I have no idea.
Because I always remember it being Arrow, and I'm like, why do you just call it Green Arrow? Why do you have to change it? It's stupid. But yeah, I tried with Arrow, and then the Flash. I don't know what it was. It was just something about that, and I don't get, because I liked Supernatural, and people go like, yeah, CW. I'm like, it's the only show that is not a CW show, but is a CW show, and I don't know how they did it.
Right. Well, I mean, you have an Angel who's okay with shotgunning people.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
it.
I tried, and I mean, Marvel only really became successful with TV with Disney streaming. I mean, they tried the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and that went for a while. And I tried watching that, and that got
it got so stuck in daytime television that and no, like miniseries has served Marvel very well. Like it's like if you just want to like a street level like get to know a character for 6 episodes, great. That's what it is.
I did like the first Daredevil. The second one was okay. The first Daredevil season on Netflix. I've been hearing that they're going to make Daredevil more comical like the Marvel Universe, which that's kind of a bummer. I mean,
I think it's going to kind of be kind of weird, but I kind of see where they started that with She-Hulk.
Yeah, because they kind of made some jokes about him, like him walking back.
And then we have confirmed that Daredevil bangs. We have confirmed that. But they're like, but he's still. I think they made him so he just seems more confident, so he's more comfortable making jokes in the middle of stuff because he's like, no, I can do that. I'm doing this with my eyes closed, literally.
Yeah. But I mean, no one's ever going to surpass that hallway fight scene like the first episode of Daredevil. That was awesome. And then they tried to bring in I still don't know how they keep score. I watched The Punisher in the Daredevil was okay, and then they tried the Punisher show and they ruined it again. I don't get how they continuously mess up the Punisher. Like again, like you have been. I mean, Hollywood. You've been making movies with people with guns since you've been Hollywood. All you did was add a skull to his chest. Why do you keep messing this up? Just make it like John Wick or something. But they keep like in the TV series, like, well, he's part of a government conspiracy. I'm like, that's stupid. Stop that.
The micro storyline is a bit long. I kind of like the original, whereas Micro essentially created a conspiracy to get Punisher to do his work for him. I wish they kind of stuck with that, where Punisher realized that he's actually just being used. So God damn it. But I like the second season where it's just him in a country town with a cult. And he's like, well, someone has to die, and it's not going to be me.
Well, it's weird because the original Punisher story was so simple. I mean, it was like his white family gets taken on by the mafia, and so he hunts the mafia. That's it. He just systematically hunts the mafia down. I'm like, that's it. You don't need to do any more. Just make it like a Goodfellas movie with the Punisher. I mean, it's super simple, and they just continuously. I tried to watch the first season of The Punisher, and they got way too much into torture. And that's the one thing. Like, it's not so much that whatever. I never saw the Punisher as the big guy that tortured. He mostly just killed people. I mean, he would torture them to kill them, but he wouldn't torture them. I remember him having this big torture scene. I'm like, nah, I don't really see that. He just kills them.
Right. I think he definitely got more into. He got more torture friendly when he was working with Cable in his team-up series because Cable is big into gathering intel.
And stuff, but
I would say if you want to give it a shot again, just go straight into the second season.
The second season, because that's because I remember I got through a lot of the third or fourth episode of the first season. Then when I find out like you're part of a conspiracy, I'm like, no, sorry. And I know they keep trying to. I don't understand why they have such a hard time with that costume. They got to like paint the skull a certain way or whatever. I'm like, look, just give him the straight up skull on his chest. It's not a bit. The military does it now. I mean, the modern military stole the Punisher skull and they put it on their suits and stuff. Not full body suit, the full front. Yeah. But I mean, it's not like. But they go like, well, he's wearing a tactical vest and there's this weird white paint on that kind of looks like a skull. I'm like, don't just give us a skull.
Right.
It's like quit going around that like it's some accident and it looks like a skull.
All right. Well, I figure we should real quick before we get more into media, let's get back to our topic at hand. So reasons you would consider relocating, since you kind of said you don't need to, kind of over the history of why that was thing. We already kind of talked about in the like editor communication. In some cases, they having that office atmosphere of being able to like have the writer run down to the artist, run down to the editor.
Yeah,
that can help, but usually that's only for like in-house stuff working on their big projects. But the main thing that I've seen people relocate for is the main thing people relocate for any industry, which is just to network.
Yeah, and Portland is like the big. I think it's like the comic book capital now. It used to be New York, but I think Portland's more of a
Portland's
comic book
definitely blew up. LA to some extent, but LA is usually for people who do comics and movies or comics and TV.
Yeah, because I know we have Oni and Lionforge, but if I'm not mistaken, I think Lionforge is part of Oni, but it might be part of Boom Studios. I think they're connected somehow, but I'm not sure. So Dark Horse, Image, and Oni, and I know Lionforge is out here.
Yeah. Comics. Yeah, they're subsidiary, or no, they own Oni.
Okay, so it's the other way around. Okay, yeah. I knew Lionforge was out here. Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah, they also own Magnetic.
I remember that. Wasn't that are you talking about the direct-to-video distribution? Wasn't that, or was that a comic?
Let's see. They're they're the graphic novel company. They do like a bunch of their branded stuff, like Lupin the Third, Sherlock.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah. There's networking. It's fun, being in Portland and trying to network with other comic artists is hard. We had something out here that was a meetup group for like a drink and draw, but it would have a professional comic artist come to drink and draw and hang out and talk, and it was fun for a good while. Unfortunately the bar was closed during COVID. He couldn't survive COVID.
Yeah.
But it was fun, and it was a way to kind of network. But again, artists are introverts by nature, so trying to get a bunch of artists together to socialize is like trying to get herd cats.
Yeah.
It's just
the successful things I've seen. I don't know what the locations for you do this for New York, but I know places you could do this in Portland and in LA. Go to the local barcade. So for us, that's Ground Control. If you go to LA, go to Level 1, and then also go to your Friday Night Magic at things like at Gone Guy Games or go to like the Warhammer painting stuff. For whatever reason, like every third person will meet there, be like, "Oh yeah, I worked on this book."
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think like Guardian Games would have a lot of it too? Because Guardian
Games might probably. I would imagine they did. I know Mox is also big because Mox is interesting because it has that full restaurant in the front, at the back, and the games start at the front. The professor who does Tolarian Community College, that YouTube channel, is there. He's also connected with a bunch of people like at Dark Horse and whatever, and so they're just going to get this branch of a bunch of people who play Magic at Mox or whatever.
That's weird. I mean, it makes sense that a lot of these comic book people would be into games and stuff. Yeah,
it's a more natural environment. You're just there to hang out.
Yeah, and you're not really there to basically network. You just play games. You just happen to meet these people here and there.
Yeah. So I guess this is another subject for our thing, but like the way to approach networking is they don't treat it like you're looking for work, treat it like you're looking for friends, because down the line it'll turn to work. But it's just cool to have friends in the industry.
Yeah, and meet them and stuff. Yeah, it was fun to meet some of the guys there at the drink and draw and stuff. I never got in. Well, one reason I never got into Magic was just the money factor. That was the same thing. Warhammer. It's like, I collect comics. That's enough of a sinkhole for right now. It's cool. I mean, I still like watching people play Warhammer and stuff, but man, you gotta have
you gotta invest in models, do the painting, all that. Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, I think networking is the only reason. I mean, if you move to cities, networking and comics could lead to other jobs in other industries, and if you're in the cities where those happen, like LA or something, you can go that direction too.
Yeah, if you play Warhammer in London, you have a fairly decent chance of meeting Karen Gillan.
There was a few drink and draws that I've run into Brian Michael Bendis a few times at the local comic shop.
Nice.
So I never talked to him, but I always recognize him. So comic shop's another place that you might run into. Now, whether you talk to them, that's up to you.
Yeah.
But you recognize them. I saw Kurt Busiak, whatever, hanging out at the mall one time.
Yeah. Kurt
He's
Busiak. Yeah, he's still in the area. Gail Simone is between us, I think. And I don't know because there was an ongoing saga where she had a bear that's kept on visiting her home because it's next to one of the salmon runs.
Okay.
So she's like, there's like an ongoing like couple of weeks on Twitter where she's like, this bear.
There's a bear in my yard. There's a bear.
Yeah.
So this is also why you get some of the more political tones in a lot of comics nowadays because of Portland. And I mean, I would assume maybe if you get in certain political parties, you can meet comic creators there too. I'm guessing. I don't know. I just know that there's a lot of them in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the only thing I think of networking. I think so many art jobs are remote working nowadays. Animation studios, I still think have studios and stuff.
Yeah, the only one I have is it Pete Bird, the ones who did Avatar and Vox Machina?
Oh,
or Titbird.
Yeah,
yeah. They have a huge like in office art area.
Are they out here?
No, they're in LA, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, Titmouse. Yeah, they how many variations of this bird's name? But no, it's titmouse. I think they're almost entirely like in-house essentially, and it's impressive actually.
There was the studio who did BoJack Horseman. I don't know if the main studio is out here, but they had a satellite I think they were called Shadow Machine, that was out here, and they're an animation studio. And I saw clips, went to their site, and I think they had an entire animation studio, like another studio. Most animation studios do have that. Comic books, you don't need, which is kind of a bummer because, there's a generation of ideas and stuff that you can, a lot of comic book artists work in isolation. Art can be a lonely job.
Yeah, if you do move to one of those areas, if you're a writer in one of those areas, there is a meme as to for a reason as to like artists working in Starbucks or in coffee shops. It's just it's a nice environment, and you're probably going to run into a bunch of people on their laptops who are working on silver books or whatever. So if someone doesn't have their headphones in, you can wave and maybe strike up a conversation. But
it'd be cool. I mean, the only other comic studio that tried to recreate the bullpen was CrossGen.
Yeah.
And that didn't last long, but I remember, I think, I don't know, Perez, there were some famous people that were working in like a bullpen. So there's some people, but that was started by like a millionaire's son or whatever. So there's people with money that have tried to recreate the studio presence. And I do think there is something sometimes kind of exciting about knowing that comics or comic universes come from a studio or one central place. I don't know. You show behind the scenes, it's like, Disney, even if they worked remotely, but the fact that you could go to Disney, I think you could still go there and like see the artists working in the, and stuff. And like, comes from one place. But yeah. Other than that, no, I don't really think, most technology makes it so you don't have to remotely do anything. You have to move anywhere. You can just remotely do it all.
Honestly, like probably one of the best advice we could give to ours would be if you like find a show or like a event that has a good turnout for your like that you sell well for like the artist alley or what have you, move close to that.
Yeah.
Just cut your travel time.
Yeah. And there are certain, I've noticed like one thing that might have done enough to move, if you wanted to move, like you were saying, certain areas respond to certain genres of comics. Like out here, there's been a few guys I've met who are really popular online who do, girls with boobs or whatever, or certain other type of comics, and they hardly sell anything in Portland because of politics. Let's just be honest, politics. They go to other cities, they just sell out. So sometimes it does help to move to where your audience is. Audience isn't out here, then
If you like doing weird science fiction stuff and lots of drug use, Portland.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's especially if you do a lot of slice of life stories. Those are big out here too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I know we had Stumptown Comic Con, which was the independent comic convention, and the largest one. I don't think there was another one around the country that was just for independent comics, but we tried that.
Right.
So, and if you like to do independent, like zines, independent stuff, Portland is another. They love that stuff out here.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you're trying to be like entirely your own creation, make yourself like indie sweetheart, Portland, LA is also pretty decent. LA is weird though. Don't live in downtown LA. Find a suburb. Suburbs you can actually get pretty decently and avoid like most of the traffic and whatever. But yeah,
yeah. Portland is really big on the indie scene out here.
Yeah.
In fact, there is a lady I think it's called Emerald City Distributors.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I think that, and she is, I think, a one-woman team. I don't know if she has other people working for her, and she does nothing but just take independent comics and shop them around the shops all over the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Washington. I'm not sure about Idaho and California. I think so, but she will just shop them and she'll show up to them and sell a lot of independent, self-owned comics through Emerald Distribution.
Yeah, there's I think there's also a shop down in Eugene called Books with Pictures in them.
Yeah,
and they'll accept if you're local and have a book, they'll take it on consent. I'm pretty sure, and the owners are great. So that's a
Cosmic Monkey is another one. We do that a lot. Stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm used to the comic shops up here. I think comic shops in different areas cater to different things.
Mm-hmm.
So our comic shops up here don't really cater to the superhero stuff as much.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Not how many people buy it as much as they do other stuff because we are an artsy scene, so they want our comics. So like, if you're doing something that's a little side from traditional, or if you do a superhero that is not what you traditionally see, you might do well here.
Oh, they still have all the Marvel, DC. They're just not what you're generally going to see when you go in the store firsthand. It's kind of mixed in with everything else.
Yeah.
When I've heard, that's what I'm gathering from like talking to Roland, is when most comic shops in other areas are catering to Marvel and DC with their big push, and then they have an independent section. That was not the way it was when I was growing up here.
Yeah,
and I think mostly because of Dark Horse because they own most of the comic stores, and then they were selling their stuff through their stores. I mean, come on, that makes sense.
It's like our official Comic Con is apparently put on by Dark Horse. So when you walk in, you got the Dark Horse hall, you got the Image hall, you got the Indie hall, and they told Marvel and DC to go in the back.
Yeah. Dark Horse just is like this huge island in the middle.
Yeah,
and then it's Image and stuff, and you had little independents. But Dark Horse just pretty much takes it over.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've always been the driving force. And it's funny because it always made me think Dark Horse is bigger than it is. I think it's like the third or fourth largest comic company. I'm not sure about now, but I think it was.
I mean, if you're not referring to the big two, some people refer to it as the big four because it's Marvel, DC, Image, and Dark Horse.
Yeah,
that has owned like the majority of the market share.
Because I think, and Dark Horse has had a few movies come out too. I mean, if you got Marvel, DC, Image has had it. Image has had some movies and TV shows, but Dark Horse has had. I mean, there's that movie Virus. There's been a few. I mean, Hellboy, obviously.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Sin City. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they also will acquire the rights to stuff that's already movies and turn it into comics. So they kind of invert the algorithm.
Did you see the trailer for the Hellboy video game they're making?
It looks super interesting.
It's directly Mike Mignola's art style, which for some odd reason I always like. Why did they just make it a Mike? And they did.
Yeah.
Because I've always said it to my friend because they made someone as a quasi like just make it, and they did, and I'm like, I like it, but I don't know. It looks weird when it moves. Like there's something about it. I'm like, maybe his art works better when it's static. Don't. I don't know. I need to play it, but because I know Dark Horse was bought by a company that owns a lot of video game companies. They're like this company that owns multiple companies. I can't remember the name of it. And so everyone was assuming, well, we're going to start seeing Dark Horse properties in video games. And lo and behold, ta-da, that's a Hellboy video game coming out. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Owned by Embracer Group.
Yeah. And they bought them out like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
So, which, makes sense, but because one of Dark Horse's cash cows now, I remember when I was talking a while ago to some people, like, what's keeping Dark Horse alive? And one of these guys made a history of Zelda, the Zelda video games. And that was like the biggest seller for Dark Horse. And so they've gotten into making tons of art books on video games. So there's tons of these hardback, like The Art of Last of Us, The Art of Uncharted, and they're all Dark Horse published. So Dark Horse has this huge, I don't know if it's not even comic, it's like this side publishing gig of publishing art books on video games.
Well, they also like, they do like, they also like cater to like a special type of nerd, because like I think most of the D&D and Pathfinder comics go through Dark Horse. The Critical Roles comic went through there.
Yeah. It's weird. I think Dark Horse is still taking other licenses. They lost Predator and Aliens. I've heard that they're able to publish some Star Wars comics now. There's a little bit of drifting back to Dark Horse. I'm not sure the legal stipulations of that yet.
I believe they say they don't know if they're going to be doing any new Legacy content, but stuff that pulls from Legacy content, Star Wars Legends. So because Dark Horse has handled all the Legends stuff in the past, that they're going to be SG bringing those storylines into the new continuity.
Right, so they don't own it, but they're being outsourced to Dark Horse because they've worked with Star Wars for so long. Yeah, the Aliens and Predator, I'd wish they'd go back to Dark Horse because I like them there. There was something. I will admit, is a little sad tear in my eye when I go into comic stores and see Alien compendiums that are published by Marvel. That's all Dark Horse stuff. That's a little sad. Sad face. Predator does that too. I'm like, that was published by Dark Horse, not Marvel. But this is the same way. Like every time you watch a Netflix show, like you're watching an anime series from the '90s. Evangelion was one. Netflix original program. No. Stop doing the original thing. Like it should be Netflix presents, not Netflix original, because you didn't make it. You're just grabbing stuff from other popular stuff and just putting the original logo on it and pushing it out there.
The original work you did was converting the frames into a digital format.
That's it. And there's been so many series where you see them as like Netflix original series. I'm like, stop it. And it's the only streaming service that does that.
Right.
I mean, when Disney does it, it really is their stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think even like when Hulu does something, I don't even know if they call they do call them Hulu originals, but I believe like the most you get is at the front, you just get a Hulu bump, and then it cuts to the show. It's like
cuts to the show,
yeah. It's like cool Hulu, yes.
Yeah. But there's been it's funny too because being an Evangelion fan, they redid Evangelion in 4 movies, and the 4 movies went to Amazon. So I wonder if that confused people. Like, but I thought Netflix made Evangelion. Like, no. But Amazon. It was Amazon got the movies and the rights to the movies and stuff. But they do anime. They do some of their own anime series, but it's just confusing because you just think like everything is on Netflix was originally made. It's like some of that is, but so much of it is not made by Netflix. Right. That's just putting a little moniker on it and kicking it out. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else to say about the whole remote thing. I think as a writer, you can be even more remote.
Oh yeah.
And so
as a writer, like you don't even really need to be in the same countries where you get published. Like I've had stuff in Europe and whatever. Yeah. It's because text files are so small already that why bother?
Well, it's funny because even as remote, when I had my 2 kids' books published, I think they traveled to more places than I did. So a little me went to other countries, like yay.
Yeah, it is beneficial to like travel network, like when you go to like events and whatever, and like hand people your book. Like if there's like a senior editor to some place you'd like to work with, like hey, read my book, please. But usually, I mean, even then, that's helpful only really after you've already get published somewhere else, because you have your product in hand to show them that you completed work for someone else.
So usually it's better to be published by the small guys and then work your way up. So I mean, because the number one thing they always say that kills any is people not getting their work done. People commit to the first issue, and anymore going through independence, I can kind of tell I can tell when they're going to complete the series, and you can tell when like that's the only issue you will ever see, and it's usually in the way they talk. If they talk about, I got done issue 1, it's blood, sweat, and tears, took a year, it's hard work, I can't believe I got it done. That's the only issue you will ever see. Right. If no one talks about how hard they had to work in a comic, you'll see more.
I mean, in this game, some dudes, I'm going to name names, but you get some dudes who like complete work. Like, yeah, it's great, easy, yeah. Look for work in the future, and then they don't even like send in their banking information for payment. It's like, where'd you go?
Where'd you go? Yeah. Like, okay.
Like, you violated your own contract. This is my bonus.
Yeah. Like, okay, it's not even gonna go there. Yeah. Yeah. I've never found making comics hard. Just time consuming. It's just time. It's whether or not it's the time you want to give up to do it.
Yeah.
But I never found it hard per se. They always find it weird, like when some people like take a year to make a comic, and there's a part of me, it's like, I know a lot of people have a lot of responsibilities, but it takes you almost a year or two to make a comic. Maybe you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
like, let me look at your workflow.
Yeah. Is it my personal time for like a script is like, if it's 3 days, that's a long time to write. It's like on a weekend I could talk out 22 pages, full DC style, whatever. Donnie Katz says like, he's like, yeah, I pump out like a scripted. If I'm working on a lot of books, I'll pump out like a scripted day, and that's like 1 week. Next week is an edited day.
Because once you start getting going, like giving a story or script, then once you get into the flow, then it just flows into the next. Like each panel is going like, okay, well, I know what the next panel is going to be, because that naturally flows to that.
I mean, even then, like usually like my first like half day or whatever writing is me creating, because I do I'll write a Marvel style script as an outline. So when I get to actually writing, I'm like, I just turn my brain off and words happen.
Yeah. I mean, when I wrote this last little script, again, this was a script for me, but I think it was like 2 days.
Yeah,
maybe. But again, I'm the only one reading it, so I'm not editing for spelling or grammar or whatever. I'm just throwing down what I need to remember what I was thinking at the time.
Yeah, well, even then,
sometimes it doesn't always help.
The only thing I saw really is like editing for grammar and dialogue.
In the dialogue, yeah.
But like if it's like a typo in the description, the writer can message me, or the artist can message me.
Yeah. I don't care.
Explain this.
And the dialogue, I will change the dialogue on the page as I go. I mean, there's so many times I've written dialogue on my books and just change it as I go. Oh, it doesn't make sense, so that word doesn't need to be there. Rewrite, so I change it as I go along. Not when it's finally on the page and printed, but
right.
So
looking at maybe doing like a depending on like the future of webtoon type stuff, like maybe a point where you can do living edits where you put something up on your website and you're like, oh crap.
And you can just reload it really quick. Yeah. One of my kids' book has a misspelling in the very back, and I didn't even see it. And by the time it was printed, I was like, well, I guess we get a misspelling. You just kind of have to deal with it. So I'm like, all right, whatever, that works.
I think it might be Kayla's number 2.
There's
a dialogue bubble where it has the character's name and the colon before the
Oh, whoops.
I was like, oh man.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few. Most of the time when I read Silverline, most of the wording, I've not found many spelling mistakes or grammar. It's usually pretty well done. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, writing is easier. Drawing is just more time consuming. But it's just I still see people. I got page 1 of issue 1 done. I'm like, good job. Keep going.
Take a day, celebrate, grab some coffee. What do you got planned for the next week?
Yeah, because you're gonna be at it. Just keep going. I think me and my friend Juan have talked about this, where we realize the thing that kills a lot of people when they want to make a comic is just the amount of time they have to sacrifice to actually make it. And then make it competent. I mean, you can make a stick figure comic. I mean, don't get me wrong, but if you want to make a something that this vision and all these colors, it just takes time. And if you're doing it for free, that's even worse. So video games, the number 1 killer of creative endeavors.
Yes. Yeah.
And college educations too.
Yeah. My office just recently got into Elder Scrolls Online again. So like, we're not talking work. We're talking leveling right now.
Leveling and stuff. Oh man, yeah. I remember one of my back over the art studio. I have friends who taught me to get into Dark Souls, and that's when I got into there. But yeah, talking about video games and whatnot. time sinks and stuff.
Mhm.
That was what I never did. I played one time. My friend let me play World of Warcraft once for a few minutes. I never got into. I know a lot of people who get like that's their life.
It killed me for a couple of years. I know it almost stopped Henry Cavill from playing Superman.
Did it?
Yeah, he was. He just got back into it, but so did David Harbour. But David Harbour is now Twitch streaming because I think he's been between jobs. But Henry Cavill just played a ton of WoW since it launched, and he had read for Superman, sent in his tape, and his agent was calling him, but he's in a raid, which is like the big group activity, so he had his phone on silent, and so he missed 2 of his agent's calls. And he finally picked up on the 3rd time he called, and he's just like, "You got Superman. I was about to stop calling you."
He's in a raid, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, there's important things that be happening here and stuff. Yeah, I know he builds his own PCs.
He builds on PC, yeah. And apparently, while he's on the set of Mission Impossible, he brought a laptop so he could play Total War Warhammer. He'd go on set, film a scene, go back into his trailer, and play Total War.
Sounds about right. Well, aren't they released a new Warhammer game that I know?
Yes, Darktide.
And then I know there's a new Diablo game coming out.
Yeah, we're on Diablo 4. So those also be big time sinks for people in those scenes.
It's funny. Me and my nephew played Diablo 3, and we were amazed at how easy it got. I mean, it was fun, but I mean, you eventually just become a force of destruction, and everything is just like you're just a cakewalk. And I'm like, So I hope that if they do 4, like they make it a little more challenging.
Well, the idea is that you spend the campaign, and the entire game is just you fighting massive hordes of enemies, looting, and then by the time you get to the end game, that's when you go into the mythic hard content. And so you level up, you go on this power trip, and then you get the thing, and it starts punching you in the face.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some games do that. I've been actually going through between 3 different systems of video games. I start my PlayStation 3, so I go PlayStation 3, Xbox, PlayStation 5, and I keep switching between games. Got back into replaying Ratchet and Clank, starting from number 1. I've done this a few times.
Nice.
And then playing a game called Evil West.
I've heard of, yeah.
Really fun game. It's like a Devil May Cry at Old West. Yeah. And then I've been playing through the Gears series. I'm on Gears 4.
Nice.
And my nephews have always played it. They love Halo and Gears. And I played all of Halo except Halo Infinite, which my nephew says is not worth it. But maybe I'll download it. But I played Gears 1 and then maybe 2, and I never played 3 because my Xbox just kept dying. So I finally get a chance to play them all. So I actually like 4. I asked my nephew, do you like the campaign of 4? He didn't, but so far I like it. I don't find it that bad. A lot of people did not like it after 3.
Yeah, it felt like it almost went into like a different story, but no, it's good. I don't mind it at all because it all feels like it's all part of the same.
Yeah.
Continuation of the story. Infinite is interesting. The storyline of Infinite you'll enjoy better if you like the storyline of the Halo Wars games, not the mainline Halo games.
Okay. Yeah, I've been playing Halo Wars because I know Halo Wars is downloadable too, up for download.
It's on Game Pass, but it's a strategy game. And then because they kind of did a weird thing where after how badly 5 did, like we're just going to cancel that and we're going to take the storyline that was in Halo Wars 2 and use that because that did well.
Interesting, because I know Halo. I played Halo 2. I thought the enemies. I like the Covenant when they finally defeated the Covenant. Then they had these robotic, organic. I don't know. They were like these robot type enemies.
The Prometheans, the Forerunner constructs essentially.
They were okay, but it was I don't know. It was something about the Covenant that I really liked.
Yeah. I bringing in the Banished made sense because the Banished were interesting. They're the guys who already hated the Covenant. So when the Elite Civil War happened, they saw this as their opportunity to be like, "Hey, we're just gonna make our own little faction and go to war with everybody."
Nice. So, yeah. I my favorite first-person series, which ended and will never come back, is Killzone.
Killzone is great,
and I always love the Hellgast and stuff. But they went to and I tried to play the second Horizon Zero Dawn, and I had to give up because it was just the crafting got way too much for me. And I used to love guerrilla games. I played the first Horizon. I'm like, yeah, it was okay. Played the second one, like it's got to get better, and it didn't. So it makes me sad. I miss Killzone. I thought that series was great.
I've been playing the new Modern Warfare, which has actually been pretty good. The campaign is also pretty good.
Didn't they remake number 2? Isn't this a remake of one?
Yeah, they rebooted Modern Warfare in 2019, and then this is a sequel to the reboot. So, but it follows you get the same characters, but presented in a new story, which is kind of interesting.
It is kind of interesting.
And the cinematics will put you in Uncanny Valley because it looks like you're watching a real movie.
I know they've
rendered so well, but the campaign and look are actually pretty good. The writing on the characters is actually impeccable in those games. But the video game that I have to talk about though, as far as like classics coming back, Armored Core 6 just got announced.
I know. And the first thing I thought when I saw that is like the people asking like, "Are you gonna make it like Dark Souls?" He says, "No." So I'm like, because I'm like, I remember playing the other Armored Cores, and I was like, I don't really think that's gonna work with the Dark Souls thing because of the whole modification thing.
The modification, I could see them maybe doing like a Surface World type thing, but the modifications it's too like even then like you get starting with like. Really starting at Armored Core 3, but like even like in Armored Core 2, you started getting so much story dump just in the briefing rooms.
Yeah,
like I got into like with the Nexus and 9 breaker, and those ones are like really big with that. And then Armored Core 4 Answer, and 5 and Frederick Day were all like you're experiencing a movie, and then you play a cutscene out of the movie.
I remember collecting some of my favorite. I like the Armored Core mech designs. My favorite were the front mission was more of a tactical. Those are more tactical games. I was surprised when I saw Armored Core. I was like, huh. Yeah. And I'd be curious to know, because they call it Armored Core 6. I'm like, are they going to continue a story? Because I mean, the last Armored Core game was like PlayStation 3.
Well, it's weird because Armored Core doesn't. There are Armored Core like storylines that are kind of contained, but not really. Like 4 and 4 Answer for the same story.
Yeah.
5 and Verdict Day were sister stories, but not in the same universe. It's like Final Fantasy, or each numbered iteration is a separate universe, except for Armored Core 1 and then Armored Core 2, The Last Raven was a sequel to that, but 2 of The Last Raven is not related to Armored Core 2, which is its own universe.
Speaking of weird... I was going to say, speaking of weird things, did you ever play Death Stranding?
I did not. I saw we got a sequel announced for that.
The sequel for that.
Yeah.
And I have it. My nephew he wanted to buy a PlayStation 4 to play with me. And he bought this collector's Death Stranding version because he liked the skull. I think there was a skull on it or whatever. That looked cool. Sure. It's like, do you want to play the game? He's like, no, I don't want to play the game. And so he gave me the game. Just gave it to me. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I haven't played it yet. I need to play. I love Metal Gear, so I don't see why I'm not playing. I'm sure I'll enjoy it. People say, it's kind of like play it in short spurts. Yes. Because there's a lot of just,
it's a walking simulator at times, but yeah.
Yeah. But I kind of thought he was never going to make a sequel to this because I don't remember it getting a lot of.
It's very mixed reaction at best.
Yeah, a lot of people just like, this game's boring. It's not very good. And so I thought he was going to, make something else. But he's making a sequel. And I'm like, wait, what? So maybe I will play the first one. Because I have. It's been sitting there. I'm horrible at getting around the video games. But I was curious because I know you like Metal Gear. So I didn't know if you played Death Stranding. So, okay, you're the same as me. We haven't gotten to that one yet.
Yeah, not yet. I'm not sure if I'll get. I may just watch a playthrough on YouTube.
I'm curious to see what the gameplay like. Is he doing another walking simulator, or is this completely different?
I know someone on one of my Metal Gear groups kind of did some snooping. And I think they found in one of the clips from the trailer, they found a red exclamation mark appearing above an enemy's head.
I wouldn't be surprised if he does it.
Yeah. I don't know if it might introduce some stealth stuff, or I can't. Yeah. I don't know if they could go into Walking Simulator 2. I don't know. But it's Kojima. He was going to do what he wants to do.
He's going to do... I've heard he wants to reboot Silent Hill or do something in the vein of Silent Hill or something. I know they're rebooting Silent Hill 2. I don't know why number 2 gets all... I mean, I played all the Silent Hills, and everybody loves number 2, and I'm like, well, why? I mean, it was okay. 3 was my favorite, but there was a lot of them. I just don't know, but they're rebooting 2, and I'm like, well, why not 1? Whatever.
Yeah.
So, and I've been hearing rumors that they're actually mixing like Dead Cells with Castlevania.
Yes, Dead Cells is getting the Castlevania DLC because Konami the weirdest deal ever. Like, I think the Laurie and Konami struck a deal that they're creating essentially DLC is just going to be a Castlevania story with featuring all the characters, but with the Cells Ninja. Because
I love Castlevania and Moto Gear. I don't think Konami's ever going to touch Moto Gear because I think when they tried it last time, I thought Kojima was such a failure that they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised that Konami. I mean, I'm like seeing Silent Hill and Castlevania. I'm like, is Konami back in some weird way? Because they were making pachinko machines last time I heard. So I'm kind of curious. Like, okay, this is a little weird. But yeah, and Final Fantasy 16 actually looks kind of cool. I've actually played all of the standalone Final Fantasies up till now. I just go through them. I don't ever do a lot of the extra. I just go through the main storyline.
Yeah.
I'm glad it doesn't look like a boy band simulator like the last game.
The last game wasn't boy band, but also I kind of love that about it.
It was just so bizarre. It was like you get in your fancy car and your black suits and you drive. I mean, it was a fun game.
But then you cut to the last act and there's like, why is this the saddest thing now?
Yeah, it's like the world's destroyed and all of this stuff, and then you're just like, sorry for spoilers, but
yeah.
And then there's like some other. I played one DLC and there was some other DLC, but I gave up on that. Played the Final Fantasy VII remake. I don't know why people love Final Fantasy VII so. I don't know because my favorite was 9, but I do not know why Final Fantasy VII is like its own cult. And they just
I think for a lot of people, it was like their first one.
I think it was.
Because it's the same reason why I like 8 so much is my first one, even though it's by no means the best Final Fantasy, but I like it because it's my first one.
9 was my favorite. Yeah. I know they brought out, I think Crisis Core came out today.
Yeah.
And that was a side story, even the original. And so I'm like, I don't know if I really want to play it. Like I remember what happened in the remake, but I'm like, I don't know. But the one thing I was surprised in the Final Fantasy 16 is the medieval setting.
Yeah.
It's not sci-fi technological how they've been doing. It's medieval. I'm like, well, that's actually kind of interesting.
Right.
So yeah, there was a few game surprises. This Death Stranding 2 was a little weird. I never thought I thought nobody liked the first one, so I'm surprised he's like, but again, that's a lot of Japanese are that way. It's like, you don't like it, don't care, we're making a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then there were, the Armored Core came out of nowhere. And I totally forgot From Software even made that. There's a lot of games coming out that I'm like, that's right, they did make that series.
Well, it's like whatever, like that's because like Armored Core was my main game from Software forever. So like every time that when they finish Dark Souls, like they're working on a new non-Souls title game like Armored Core. It's like, no, it's Bloodborne. They're working on a new game. It's not Dark Souls. No, it's Sekiro.
Yeah. Well, Sekiro was supposed to be Tenchu.
Yeah,
they were rebooting Tenchu, and they were like, nobody remembers Tenchu. I'm like, I do, but
right?
And so they decided to just change it to something else. But it is Tenchu, except they really need to. The only thing my gripe with that game was that it was the same assassination animation, and they needed to have more anime. You just come back and stab the guy in the neck. It's like it's like the whole thing is a neck stabby simulator. Right. You always come up and stab him in the neck and they run away. I really liked the game. That was the one. Most Souls games I can usually beat most bosses in a day or something, a few hours, whatever. That was the one that took me 3 days and to beat the final boss. And I had the cheese. I looked online. Some guys like, look, you can cheese this thing and beat it. And I was like, done. And I did that and finished it. And people like, is that cheating? I'm like, no, it's not, because I feel they're cheating against me.
For a FromSoft game, no.
No, you can cheese it all. And there was like, well, did you beat this fire demon that's even harder than the last boss? I'm like, no, I'm done.
I have no will.
No will. I'll play it later. I'll do it some other time. But yeah, Sekiro is good. And then they're making some sort of, I've heard like a spiritual. Oh no, there was a game that came out that was like a Bloodborne spiritual successor, but it wasn't from software. It was I can't remember the name of the game now. I think it was called Demissia. That's what it was. Which is some third party. There's a lot of independent studios making Souls-like games.
Yeah.
Did you ever play that Remnant game? Which is another Souls game, but with guns.
I played it a little bit. I haven't gone through it, but I did enjoy it.
And I was surprised they actually announced a sequel to that. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Well, it's been about an hour and a half, so it's about our time. Yeah, we kind of
went off at the end.
Went off on deep end, yeah. But we'll be back next week. Actually, will we?
What is next
week?
We
will. Yeah, we won't be here the week after though. I'm pretty sure. I'll find out later. But be sure to check out the Wednesday stream here at 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, and our Sunday stream 8 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. And the rest of the network at their regularly scheduled times. So we'll see you next week. And until that time,
make my Silverline.
We had an ending. Where'd it go? There it is.
Hey, I'm Pat Broderick. Make mine Silverline.